Light it up for my city. For my city, for my city.
What's up? Welcome to conversation number 22. My guest today is a badass. She is so cool. I've been following her for years, literally years. I am a huge fan of rock climbing, and she is a professional rock climber. She's on Team USA, and if you haven't heard of her before, her name is Sierra Blair-Coyle. I'm so pumped she gave me time to speak with her today, and I really think she has a lot to share. She's overcome a lot to be able to do what she loves for a living and to pursue what she's absolutely passionate about. Sierra, thanks so much for being here with me today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, like I was saying in the introduction, and we were talking a little bit offline, like obviously you are probably the most well-known female professional rock climber that I know in existence. Like I was so excited to talk to you, and that you replied to me, and we were able to interchange some emails because it's been very inspiring. I love climbing myself, so for you to be able to take some time out of your day and be able to speak with me and let my listeners listen to you in this fashion is very exciting.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat and share some of the fun things I get to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we were talking a little bit offline, but I want to know, and I know a lot of people, you've done a bunch of podcasts, a bunch of Skype interviews, and there's a lot of stuff out there on you already. But for those of you listening that don't know Sierra, how did you get started rock climbing? How does somebody do that professionally?
Yeah, okay, so I got started climbing at a mall by my house. They had a climbing wall there, and I tried it once. And I begged my parents to take me back every day because I just loved it so much. And I was 8 years old, and it was the middle of the Arizona summer, so it's 115, 120 degrees every day. Yeah. And my awesome parents would take me. And I told my mom, I said, I want to become a professional rock climber. And she and my dad were really supportive, but they were also we don't think that's a thing, really,
Yeah.
But a few weeks later, there's an article in the newspaper about a local climbing team and how they just gone to nationals and how well they had done. So my mom saw it, and I called the gym and just signed me up for classes right away, basically.
Wow.
And so I joined the team, and I think my first competition was 2 weeks later, and then I just got right into it.
Wow, that's really cool. So what is there something that actually, you said you went there and you're a kid and you went to the wall and you really enjoyed it and you knew immediately that you wanted to be a professional rock climber, but what really drew you into it though? I know for me, it's super fun, it's challenging, physically and mentally, to be able to overcome some of the fears, really push yourself. But is that kind of maybe what drew you in immediately, do you think? Or
I think I just liked it, and something about it felt right to me. When I was younger, I tried a few different sports, but I don't know, I think when those sports got hard, I would quit, which is such a little kid mentality, everything's easy. Yeah. But something about climbing, I didn't quit when it got hard, so I think that's how I knew I really liked it.
I can relate to that very much, and I think a lot of kids, at least growing up with the kids that I grew up around, we did a lot of sports. I played baseball, I did a little bit of gymnastics, I did soccer, I did football, I did everything. And then for me personally, what stuck was soccer. So I absolutely love that. I was bored by everything else. So I think I can relate definitely to something and you don't even necessarily know what it is immediately, but it just sticks. Yeah. And you're this feels right.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's just something about it is so perfect, and the only way to describe it is it feels right.
So yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. But that's so cool that it happened at such an early age. I know for myself, when I started playing soccer at 4 years old, so wow. That's really cool. But I didn't even start climbing. I didn't have an opportunity to climb until, gosh, I don't know. I mean, I was probably a teenager, so it's really cool that your parents were let's bring our girl here and be able to do that, because obviously, like I said, yeah, you're very well known, but I couldn't really name a whole lot of if any other female professional rock climbers. So I think it's very cool for you able to break out. I'm sure, and I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure you faced a lot of adversity, trying to be able to do that successfully and be able to do it professionally, right? I'm sure that you faced a lot of adversity there.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the hard work alone and the dedication is just a mountain in itself. And
Yeah, definitely.
it's been really worth it though. And yeah, there are just times when I didn't even like know what I was working towards necessarily in climbing, you know what I mean? It's like, but you always just have this like goal to be the best climber you can be, and that's like what's always driven me. Like I don't know, I'm one of the, I don't have like as concrete or as tangible of goals as I think other people do. I'm like, no, I just like want to be the best climber I can, and like that's just what pushes me, I guess.
No, I think that's a great response to it, because a lot of times, like I talk about like a lot of like goal-driven stuff, like you were saying on this podcast specifically. But I think like the more and more conversations I have with people, like goals are great, and I definitely support people having goals. But at the same time, like you were just describing, like I just simply wanted to do better, and I wanted to be better at it, and I wanted to just get better every time I went. So I think like that's not necessarily like, I mean, it is a goal, like every time you do it, but it's not like a firm, concrete goal. Like I want to do X thing in X amount of years, but it's just like I enjoy it. I know I want to do this. I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to have fun with it, especially, and I'm going to like try to get better every single time.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. So, and I think I saw too, when you started professionally, it was around 16 years old, I think?
Probably more like 14, but...
No big deal.
Yeah.
14, like what was I doing at 14? Definitely not anything professionally related. So that's really cool. How did that, like, so I think you said you started when you were, was it 8 or 9 years old when you hit your first wall?
Yeah, I was 8 years old when I started.
You're 8 years old, and then for just 5 years, 6 years later, you know, you're professionally rock climbing. So obviously you took quite the enjoyment out of doing something, and you're able to have those opportunities because you're in Arizona. So do you think it's like geographically based is why you had such opportunity for that, or?
I mean, not really, because so much of my climbing professionally is based on climbing indoors. And having climbing gyms is obviously like a really good thing, but you can have them anywhere, you know what I mean? So we have great outdoor climbing here, but I've just always been based more indoors. And I think I just had so many opportunities because my family was so supportive, and then I was just willing to put the work into it. And I think, you know, those two things coupled together really helped me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you there. It's so good to have, and again, like I love hearing that you had so much support from your family, especially because I know your dad's your coach, correct? And
so he was for a long time. Okay. He hasn't been the past couple of years, but yeah, no, he was for a long time.
So, but yeah, even I think regardless, the point still hits home that it's cool that he was able to, you know, be a coach in your life for so long and have, you know, I see your mom traveling with you, and it's like, it's so cool to be able to do something like that. Yeah. So you said gyms are indoors, and I think you said particularly or specifically towards the indoor climbing, and which, you know, involves a lot of stuff like the bouldering and all that. But I've also seen a little bit of outdoor climbing as well, which leads me, like, has me think to another thing. I've been talking about traveling a lot lately and how I absolutely love it. And one of the awesome things about, I think, this job, from what I can see, you know, looking in from the outside, is that you get to travel so much. And like, if that's not the dream, I don't know what is, because one, you get to do what you love, rock climbing. And number two, you get to travel around and you get to experience all these other cultures and then like do your profession in these remote places. I mean, that's got to be awesome, right?
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's like such a crazy adventure every year and every trip, and new opportunities come about, and I don't know, it's like what I pictured professional climbing being. I mean, it's some of that, but it is just so much more, you know, like it surpassed all of my wildest dreams. Yeah,
I can imagine. I mean, there's not, I don't know, that's just, it's not something like you said you wake up and you think like you're going to be like a professional rock climber in your life, and especially from such a young age. It's like, how do you break out and do that? So then I guess there's probably like, I mean, you've been doing it obviously for a while now, but there's, I would imagine there's still like a lot of surreal moments, right? Like I still can't like believe I'm doing this. I mean, and I guess that leads me to a kind of point I was talking about earlier, maybe like facing some adversity through this career. Like, what kind of things, were there ever like a time where you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to actually follow through and do this? Or
I don't think there was ever really a time when I didn't know if I'd be able to follow through and do this, because I've always loved climbing so much. But like particularly when I was going to university and climbing professionally, I was just stressed out for like 4 years straight.
Yeah.
And and my parents were like, you can take a semester off, it'll be fine. And I was like, no, I'm getting it done as fast as I can because I don't want to delay it. Like, I just want to be done so I can just climb. So that was definitely the hardest time. Like, I was so stressed out. But now that it's over and done with, I am really glad I just graduated in 4 years and got it taken care of. So just focus on climbing now.
Yeah, it can be tough because so then you were obviously going to school full time because you did it for 4 years, and then were you still climbing professionally that entire time?
I was climbing professionally, the entire time.
That's pretty crazy. I mean, that must have been pretty hectic, and I'm sure you were like, kids stress out about like taking finals, and then like here you are like going through all these motions of the finals in school for 4 years, and then like juggling a professional rock climbing career on the side. I don't know, it just sounds crazy to me, but it also, like, to me, it hits home a pretty good point of like one thing that I'm trying to get through on this channel is like you can go out and you can still do what you love, and even if you have like a super crazy busy schedule, again, you probably were maybe more stressed out in your head, but obviously you're able to get it done, right?
Yeah. I think you're capable of just accomplishing so much and you don't really know it until you're pushed to that point. Like, even now, my life is so much less stressful, but sometimes I'll start to get stressed out about whatever, and I'm like, no, you survived university and climbing. Like, this is so not a big deal. It's so much more casual. Yeah,
and it's funny how that works out. Like, once you kind of, I don't know, maybe like prove to yourself that you're able to get through a situation, especially like a long-term situation like that, or even if it's like one instance, then like you broke down that barrier once, so now you're like, well, shit, I did it before. Like, I know I can definitely do it again. And it's funny, I was just talking to a gentleman yesterday, Evan Carmichael, and he's a super great guy, gave me a lot of great feedback, and he was saying something like, even to me, like, because I'm in this transitional period of like switching jobs, and I was like, yeah, I'm a little stressed out about it. And he's like, dude, if we were having a coffee and talking face to face right now, like friend to friend, like we kind of are, I would tell you that you can do so much more than this job change, or, and so in your situation, like you're capable of so much more. Like, so now, you've already gone through these barriers, like you can do more, you're capable of more. And that's what he was trying to relay to me. Like, this is not it. This is not all that like I can do, or this isn't all that you can do. Like, you could face a lot more and get through a lot more than you think you're capable of, just like you were saying.
Yeah, it's very, very true.
That's so cool. So you're able to get through those 4 years, and now are you solely focusing on like the rock climbing aspect of it, or like what are you doing?
Yep, I'm basically just focusing on climbing, and it's been awesome. And specifically for the past couple weeks, like, I kind of had like a mid-season break for competitions between like June and August. Okay. And I went on a climbing trip for 2 weeks, and then I came home, and all I've been doing is training and relaxing, and I'm such a happy camper right now. It's just, it's been so nice,
So you went on a climbing trip on your vacation?
Yeah, it was my first climbing trip vacation I've ever taken, and it was pretty awesome. Like, we just went to Iceland, and
oh wow, beautiful!
I love Iceland.
I've never
so
been.
Much fun.
Never been.
You've never been?
No, I've heard good things, but so you would recommend?
It's amazing. No,
10 out of 10 would recommend.
Like, number one destination to anyone who wants to do anything. I'm like, you should really go to Iceland. It's incredible.
Yeah, all I know about Iceland, well, I know it's gorgeous, and I know there people are super passionate too, because I watched them during the World Cup just like a month ago, and I absolutely loved everything that was going on there. So, did you see any residual World Cup awesomeness while you were there, or?
So they were playing when we were there, and we went to one of the bars and we like watched part of the game. But everyone, like when the games are going on, a bunch of the businesses in town would shut down. Like they literally have a sign that says like, we're closed from like, I don't know, 6 to 8 for the game.
Obviously.
And, yeah, so that was cool to see. And then just like everyone at the stores was wearing like the Iceland jerseys, and
yeah, that's really cool that you're able to go out there and do all that. So what kind of stuff did you climb when you were out there?
We were bouldering at Vesterhorn and then Knapfalier, which I think I'm saying mostly correctly.
Probably, I don't know. It's a lot of weird syllables and consonants. And
yeah, it's very hard to speak Icelandic.
So I've seen, again, in another interview that you love bouldering, I think, the most. Is that correct? Yeah, I would definitely say I'm psyched on bouldering. So what draws you towards bouldering?
It's so simple and easy, and it's just so minimalist in a way. Like, all you need is, like shoes, chalk bag, and a crash pad. Yeah. And a spot is always good. Yeah. But you're good to go. Like, you're just not like weighed down with gear, and you can really just focus on climbing, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah, you can kind of go and I can agree with that too, and see where you're coming from. Like when I've gone before, if I didn't have anybody that wanted to go climb or whatever, I could just go to the gym, climb by myself, and not have to worry about all the gear and all that stuff. Just have your shoes in your bag or whatever. So how long? Let's see. You did 4 years. Like how long have you been like done with school, and how long have you just been just doing the climbing thing? Obviously, you did climbing before, during, and after, but
yeah. I've been done with school for 2 years. I graduated in May of 2016.
Cool. So where do you now that you're just focusing again, you're able to focus again on the last couple of years? Do you have any huge plans or competitions that you think you'd definitely want to do?
So I've been competing on the World Cup circuit for bouldering. That's kind of my main thing.
Let's not forget to mention that. That's for sure, because I think that's so cool that you're able to compete on a worldly stage like that. It's
really cool. So I've just really been focusing on that for the past couple of years. I guess this is my 4th full year on the circuit. So I started to do it in my junior year at university, and then I've really been focusing on that and training for that. And I still have national competitions in the US I do, but the World Cup is kind of the end game, really.
Yeah, I'd say so. Do you think, I don't know, is that and I don't know a ton about climbing. I mean, I know I enjoy it, and I know how to get up a wall for the most part, kind of, but I don't know, when it comes to competitions, is that would you say the hardest competition, or what's typically your hardest competition, and why do you think it is?
I mean, any of the World Cups really are probably the hardest ones, and I would say especially the World Cups that take place in Europe, or I have the World Championships that'll be in Austria next month, and those will be really hard. And I think it's just because there's so many good climbers across the world. Before I started doing the World Cups, I was a good US climber. I was I'm a top 10 US climber. I'm pretty good. And then you go to the World Cup and you're wait, there are 50 people just as good as me, and I thought I was good. So it's just being exposed to that, and
but that's got to be good for you in the long run, don't you think? I mean, it's going to continue to challenge you and I don't know if force is the best word I want to use right now, but kind of force you to be even better. I mean, you were already talking about you want to become better, and I'm sure you do that still every single day positively, or you wouldn't be doing what you're doing still. But it's got to be man, I need to continue to ramp it up, right?
Yeah, and I think what's kind of been cool about competing in the World Cups is it's just given me a respect for so many climbers who are so talented.
Yeah.
But at the same time, sometimes you end up beating these really talented climbers in a competition, and you're oh wow, I'm pretty good too, Yeah. So I think I just gained such respect for other athletes, and then just for myself as a climber too. I'm really proud of what I do.
Yeah, I think sometimes you almost forget, you said, wow, I beat these people too. You forget, I guess you don't give yourself enough credit. Maybe sometimes it sounds like. And I think a lot of people can do that. I do that. A lot of people I talk to do that. You definitely have to stop and soak it all in and be first of all, you made it to that level, which is I think amazing. But to be able to make it there is huge, but to be able to compete and then compete effectively and efficiently and then be able to beat other people, you got to be all right, I'm doing awesome. You have to congratulate yourself. I think that's really important to be able to do.
I do too, and I think the thing I've learned is it's you never want to just base all your goals on I want to beat this one climber, or in any sport, It's no, your goals could be about you getting better, but it is okay to say they were really good and I did better than them, and that makes me really good too.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of one of the cooler things I've learned is just being proud of how I'm climbing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to be, and it does so many good things for you. It keeps you on your toes, because sometimes when you get really when I've gotten really good at things in life, whatever it have been, maybe you get a little bit more complacent, right? So when somebody comes up and they're nipping at your heels, you're oh man, I need to keep on working harder and ensure, because once you get to the top, I'm a huge advocate of this, once you get to the top, whatever the top is, in your said field or whatever, you have to continue to work really hard to stay there, because obviously there's another guy, there's another girl just chomping at the bit to want to do what you're doing. And I feel it's probably there's probably a lot of people that want to be a professional rock climbing because it's badass. There's probably a lot of people that are every time I go to the gym, it's packed. People are climbing all the time. Every time I've gone, anywhere I've gone in the country. So there's got to be a lot of people that want to get into that field. I don't know if it's a field, that profession. So
Yeah.
it's also got to probably keep you on your toes, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I just remember a long time ago someone told me they're like, every minute you're not training, just remember someone else is. And I was like, that's good to remember. There are always people who are like trying to become better than you or just improve their climbing, and helps keep me extra motivated.
I think so. That's one thing that I've always said to myself, whether it was like I was mentioning soccer, when I was training for soccer, or when I was running for a race or whatever, like that's always been in the back of my head, and I've like kind of like beat myself up about it, like, oh, I'm gonna not do this extra mile or whatever, and then I'm like, well, somebody else is running that extra mile, somebody else is probably running 2 more miles or 3 more miles, like you need to go, and then I make up this like scenario in my head that make myself feel bad about not training as hard for whatever it is, or even like we were talking about school, like studying for a test, like, well, somebody else is studying another hour, or whatever it is in your life. So I think like in a healthy way, like balance that so you don't beat yourself up too bad. But I honestly think it's like kind of good to beat yourself up a little bit about it, like to keep yourself on your toes. So.
I agree. Yeah, you definitely you have to push yourselves in positive and negative ways sometimes too. Like gentle reminder that other people work hard as well. Absolutely.
Gentle is a very good word to use there. I think so. You have to be gentle with yourself sometimes in a sense. But I'm just wondering, I haven't seen you, are you able to like speak to people? Do you ever like go out and like offer, like do public speaking to anybody, like help other, like are you able to, and I guess another thing that's coming to mind too is, are you able to like train others? So like, those are 2 different questions, but at the same time, I wonder if like you're able to incorporate, like, say, hey, there's a bunch of kids, you get to go maybe train them and like teach them and like help motivate them and inspire them, because that's a huge thing that I want to do with this podcast, is like help inspire people and help and maybe see people that are able to help give back and train and teach others.
Yeah, I mean, so I've gotten to do like a handful of clinics and things where I get to obviously like talk and then help people with climbing. But I would say nothing like super official speaking wise. It's something I'd definitely be interested in doing. And then as far as training, I want to like coach so badly. My schedule is so packed right now. So I like made this deal with the universe. I'm like, if someone asks me to coach them, I will. But otherwise I'm like too busy to seek it out. I'm like, someone's going to ask, then it'll be meant to be. But otherwise I'm like, I just don't have time. So
that's so funny.
That's kind of the way I'm looking at it.
Maybe you have to think about back to like when you were in college now and you didn't think you'd be able to juggle those 2 things. So I guarantee you, hopefully, and maybe like obviously like I'm still building the listeners here and building this, but maybe now somebody listens, like wants to climb and is in the area where you're at in Arizona, and is like, all right, you'll be your first client or something. But I know that you could, from what just we've only been talking for like 20 minutes now, but just getting to know you and realizing that you could very well do it if you wanted to, and I would think you'd be great at it. You're easy to talk to. You know what you're doing. You've been doing it for a substantial amount of time. I mean, what is that, like at least, my math's so bad, at least 15 or 16 years, right? I mean, you've been doing it for a long time, and you care about it. And I think passion's a huge thing for me. And I think if you're passionate about something and you have like the know-how, the technicalities, how to do something, and you care about teaching it, like you'll flourish. So I'm telling you, like, I think you should do it. And I think that anybody listening that thinks they, maybe don't have the time to do something or think they might not be good at it, you probably are. If you care about it and you know a little bit about it, and then like you probably learn a lot too when you coach, I would think, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. That's all very true.
Well, next time I talk to you, I'm going to be like, so are you coaching?
I have this list of like 100 people and...
Yeah, well, God, that would be great. If 100 people even listen to my podcast, I'd be excited. I don't even know where I'm at right now, but there has been getting a lot of good feedback, and I'm glad, again, for you to take the time out of your schedule, because I'm sure there's quite a few people that know about you and that would love to hear what you have to say.
Okay.
So one of the cool things that I saw when I was perusing was you had this hashtag be somebody.
Oh yeah, I worked with them a long time ago.
Yeah, it did look older, but I'll tell you, and a few people know on here that I actually just got out of the military, and so that's like why I'm changing jobs. So and I saw that because I already bought 2 t-shirts, so I'm gonna start with that. Like I saw the hashtag like on an old video, like you said it was older, and I checked it out, and I want you to talk to us a little bit more about it, but I saw that they like give a certain percentage back. I don't know if they're still doing it, but they like give a certain percentage back to vets, and I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, so full disclosure, I haven't worked with them since 2014, so anything I say could be inaccurate, but this is going based off of
no worries.
2014. Yeah, it was kind of just like a company that was trying to inspire people to follow their passions, and when I was working with them a little bit, it was at like the very initial stages.
Yeah.
And I think they're trying to still like cultivate it and turn it into what the company is eventually going to be. Like it was like very baseline when I was working with them, but yeah, it was just very cool and like inspirational to get to work with them a little bit.
Huh. So you said they had just started. I mean, they're obviously like, for those listening, if I didn't already describe it, they have T-shirts, and they had like, you know, hashtag be somebody, or I think mine that I bought was that one, and then the second one I think said like find your passion. And that's, I preach to that. I try to, you know, that's like what I'm all about, is like finding stuff you're passionate about and doing that. And obviously you're passionate about it, climbing, and, you know, you've made that your life. And I think that's so cool, which is one of the many reasons I wanted to talk to you. And so I thought, like, so when I saw this and I knew it was older, I thought it was like a really cool fit. So like, that's why I said like I had to buy the T-shirts, and I can't like wait to wear them on one of the episodes and be able to do that. I don't know. Maybe they'll sponsor me or something. I'm just kidding. But
yeah.
So you're still training, obviously. You're training. You said you coming up is the World Cup.
Okay, so I have a World Cup in about 2 weeks in Munich.
Oh wow!
Actually, it's in exactly 2 weeks in Munich, and in 3 weeks after Munich, I have the World Championships in Austria.
Oh wow! So it sounds like you get to go to Europe a lot. I absolutely love Europe.
I do. I'm trying to think how many times I've been to Europe. Well, I guess only 3 times so far this year. But
just this year.
Just 3 times, yeah. And they asked me.
Is there
made at least 5 trips by.
Are you like selecting them in Europe, or they just happen to be all in Europe?
They just happen to be all in Europe. I guess my first trip to Europe this year was I had to go to Switzerland for a photo shoot for one of my sponsors, Mammut, and then a couple months later I had a World Cup in Switzerland, and then I went to Russia from there, and then I was back in June for a trade show in Germany, and then I went to Iceland after for that trip, and then these next 2 trips are for the
so I did forget to mention, like, obviously you were doing some modeling as well.
Yeah, definitely more of a climber. Like, modeling is really fun, but I for sure make like almost all of my income from climbing, and it's what I do 99.9% of the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. But might as well do the other stuff on the side if it's going to help, and you know, it seems very mutual, beneficial to yourself, you know, and to your career.
Yeah.
So it's very cool that you're able to do that as well. So one of the things, again, that I saw was, I think it was you had a back issue, right, when you were a lot younger. And I wanted to talk about that because, of course, I like not always talking about like the stuff that was like, oh, this was easy, I made it to the, or not that it was easy, but like all these things were flawless. But I want to, like, things happen, especially as a professional athlete, like you get injured. How did it even happen? Because I think it was a back injury, right?
Yeah. So to this day, we don't have like a definitive moment of it happening. It was just like over time, and I think it was probably not like necessarily training properly, but not protecting that area enough, and then just kind of my climbing style too.
Sure.
I'm not naturally like super strong, right? So like I'd have a lot of extra movement when I'd swing and things, and I don't know, just something eventually gave, and it kind of came on like gradually. So my back just like would start hurting more, and I'd be taking like Advil or whatever before competitions, and it just like was starting to hurt so bad, just like sitting in class at school or whatever, because I was in high school at the time, and I finally like went in and I got an MRI, and I had a bulging torn and herniated disc, and it's like I still remember looking at the MRI, and it was just like, it's not like one of those things where the doctor's like, oh, here, this is wrong, and you're like, cool, I could never notice that. You're like, that definitely looks wrong right there.
Yeah, like, I don't know anything about anything when it comes to medical, but that doesn't look right. That looks like, really bad.
It's like you have like all these like normal discs in your back, and one that's like just like sticking out and like in like weird shapes, and you're like, that's
sure. Dang, that's crazy. So how old were you when you learned that about yourself?
I was 17.
You're 17, yeah, because you said you were in high school, so you're 17 years old. You had been pro climbing for 3 years at that time. I mean, that must have been tough to deal with. I mean, if I was you, a lot of times, unfortunately, I blow things out of proportion. I'm sure people do things like that, especially medically, like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this or that anymore. I mean, so being like a professional athlete and seeing this as something you wanted to do for the rest of your life, like, that had to have been pretty scary, right?
Yeah, I think it was just hard because I couldn't train as much as I wanted to, obviously. And it was just like such a long recovery process. Like, there isn't one like set way where it's like, this is how you heal this thing in your back. Like, you have all these options, and some things work for some people, whatever. So it's just not as simple as getting a cast or something. And
that'd be brutal.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like just cast my back. But yeah, it was a tough, like, it probably took a good 1.5 to 2 years to get fully healed. And kind of once I got on, like, the better track of, like, my treatment plan, which ended up being, like, PRP injections. I don't know if you know what those are. It's platelet-rich plasma therapy. Okay. And they draw your blood out, and then they spin it down to platelets a couple times, and then they re-inject it to, like, the injured area.
Sure.
So I was getting those injections, like, every 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And when they would do the injections, they would put Marcaine in with the injections to, like, as an anesthetic for the area, basically. And I would wait when all this would happen. Ouch. And Marcaine lasts for, like, 4 hours. Like, so my back would not hurt for, like, 4 hours after I got the injections. And they were like, okay, so, like, don't climb, don't work out. Like, you can't feel anything down there. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go climb and work out then, because I actually feel good right now. But, yeah, during that time period, it was just, like, a lot of balancing of training when I could, resting when I needed to, and just like laying down flat on my back a lot made my back feel better. So I just did a lot of that.
Yeah. So physically, that sounds really tough. I mean, but like you didn't have any like doubts, like maybe is this gonna like inhibit me from doing what I want long term? Did you ever think like, were you ever like in fear that it was gonna not be fixed or something?
No, I think I always knew it was gonna be fixed, and I mean,
that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't think I like realized it was like so severe at the time. Like, maybe if it happened right now, I'd be like, oh, great, you know. But at the time, I was like, oh, whatever. Like, people get injured all the time, they're fine. And that's not to like diminish injuries, but people just come back from such crazy things that it's like, you can.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think a couple things that I got from that, like, one, I know, like, me personally, like, I was an idiot when I was younger. Like, I'm from Colorado. I snowboarded my entire life. And because now I'm living in Virginia, but I was snowboarding. I had a plethora of injuries, and I think like when I was younger, especially like a teenager, I was, and obviously absolutely crazy. Like, I didn't care about like my well-being in a sense, like physical, and like I feel like, you know, when you're a kid, like you just rebound from injuries so quickly.
You really do, yeah.
I don't know what it is, but like as I got into my 20s and then like I just turned 30, I'm like, oh my body is like breaking. I'm like, this can't break down this early. But so I think like when you're a kid, and I think sometimes like maybe being like younger and you don't know like maybe how bad it could be, like, and I think that speaks a lot towards like the mental aspect of it, is because you choose like, oh well, other people bounce back, I'll bounce back. You know, and I think that has a lot to do with it as well. I mean, I know your body heals probably a lot better when you're that age than if you're a lot older age, but at the same time that you're mentally like, oh, I'm going to get over it. I think that has a lot to do with it.
I think so too, and I think like people definitely do get like really severe career-ending injuries or whatever, but it's like,
for sure.
You know, I have some friends who were skiers, and every year they were like in the hospital getting some surgery because they just ate it so badly. Yeah. And I was like, oh, does that ever like freak you out? Are you worried about not skiing? And they're like, no, we just like have to get a surgery a year. I was like, okay, well, I guess you can just keep going.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It actually reminds me of a quick story. One of my good friends that I grew up with, Caitlin, if she's listening, she was a snowboarder as well in Colorado, and she had fallen off one of the ski lifts. And anybody that knows me or knows her 100% already knows this story, but for the listeners there, it just reminds me, like, she fell off the ski lift at the top of the ski lift where, as you know, it can be like windswept and it's more icy. And she landed face forward and ended up doing like a scorpion, and the board hit her in the back of the head. She broke her spine in half. And you can imagine, like, your body for most people is not supposed to bend like that. And I know we didn't know if she was going to be okay. Like, it was very terrifying. Like going to live okay. Like, obviously she wasn't okay. And long story short, she's an incredible human being. And a year later to the day, if I'm not mistaken, and if I am, please somebody correct me, but a year later to the day, she was out and she snowboarded down that same exact hill. And
so cool.
She had to I've seen the x-rays, like she's had all these, like you're talking about skiers getting hurt all the time, like all these like plates and stuff and screws and all this crap in her back. But I think that speaks towards like, you had an injury, you just, all right, I'm injured, what do I got to do? You get through it, and then mentally you're on top of your game, and you get through it. And then like, she obviously, like, that was a terrifying experience, but you overcome the experience, you get through it, and then like, I think it was badass for her to just go and do it again a year later. Like, I would have been like so scared shaking onto the lift if I was her that year later. But I think I see a lot of similarities in you two, like, between the both of you, to be able to do something like that and get through physical adversity too, because that can be scary. And like, I'm not a pro athlete. I don't know. I feel like I just think of myself, and like, if I was doing something professionally, like that was my job and I got hurt, it's a scary place to be at.
Yeah, I think that was scary too, because it was like climbing was just so much of my life, and I mean, climbing still is my life. Yeah. But definitely. I think I was also young enough where I was like, it's not like I have a family to support, and I was, still living with my family, and still, like, for the most part, being a teenager who also climbed professionally. So I knew, like, if something happened, like, worst case scenario, like, I'd figure it out. And I think that's what is just important to remember, like, in so many scenarios, is like, even if all the worst things happen, like, you figure it out, you just have to,
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like, I can't remember who I was talking about it, but it was one of the more recent ones, but we were talking about not having like a plan B, and like, if you really only have a plan A and your plan A fails, like, you've got to make it, like, you have to make it work. Or essentially, like, in our conversation, it was, if you don't have a plan B, you have to make plan A work. So if like, you're in a position where all you want to do, and clearly all you wanted to do was rock climb, and then you have like an injury, then you've got to find a way to make it work. You've got to find a way to better yourself physically, stay on top of your shit mentally, so you don't bring yourself down. And you got to be able to do all that effectively, to keep on going and to be able to like persevere through those hard times.
Yeah, that's exactly what to do.
That's crazy. But here you are, years later, you're obviously like, do you have any like effects from it still? Does it like bug you at all? Because I have a lot of injuries that still bug me. Maybe because I'm getting old, but.
I would say, this could just be a me thing, but it's really hard for me to do squats and like tuck my back in and have proper form, but that could also just be from years of doing them incorrectly. My back definitely hurts sometimes when I fly, but I think anyone who takes like enough 12-hour flights feels the same way. But I'd say like ultimately I have like such a good recovery, and it's just not that nagging of an injury, luckily.
Yeah, like you're still able to, like when you climb though, it's not really inhibiting or anything like that.
No, I would definitely say it isn't, especially at this point.
That's good.
Yeah, it's like, and I think just because gradually over time, like the pain has like lessened or whatever, and I would say it's like all gone now. Sure. Like all I didn't think about till like a couple years ago, and I'm like, oh yeah, that like my back definitely still hurt during that,
Wow.
But now it's fine. So.
Injuries are crazy. I've had a whirlwind of injuries over the years. Like, I got a fat like file on deck. Like my paperwork is really thick. Like I got a lot of things that happen to me, and it's crazy how some things like last for a long time, and then one day you wake up and you're like, wow, I haven't felt that for a while. Or some things like you get over them and you realize that, wow, I can't believe that still hurts. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to talk about mine because there's too many to talk about, but it's crazy. But I'm glad to hear that it's not really bothering you. And I mean, the plane rides suck. I get it. Like, I'm a 6'2" guy. Like, being in a plane ride is terrible for me. It's super uncomfortable. So I can see how a back injury would like not be prone to wanting to be in a plane for 12 hours.
That's the one way I know I've like improved so much is when my back was obviously first hurt, and even in the first 2 years after, like there's no way I could have taken a 12-hour flight. Like I would have died, you know, but now it's like I do it all the time. And I still wish I could fly business class and have a lie flat seat, but I can survive sitting up for 12 hours.
Yeah, I wish I could do that too, but I'm definitely not baller enough to be able to afford that.
I know, I'm like one day I'm going to have enough airline miles that I get upgrades or something one day.
Right. I feel like you should already have that opportunity. Like it sounds like you fly a decent amount.
I know. I think the problem is there are just so many business travelers, and they just knock you out of the ballpark so fast.
Those damn business people with their fancy suits taking up our seats.
I know. I'm like, come on. I just want to once. I want to fly business class.
I'm injured. let me use your seat. Well, that's good though. I mean, as long as you're able to like effectively compete and it not really inhibit you too much, I think like that's all that really matters. Like, I mean, the plane ride sucks, but what you really care about is the climbing. And in all seriousness, I think that's really good to hear that it's not too bad. So hopefully you don't have any more problems with that.
Yeah, I think I'll be okay.
Sweet. One of the things I saw about you, like, obviously we started talking on Instagram, and I saw like you, and a lot of people do it, but I think you more than almost anybody I can see on social media, like you're very interactive with people on social media. Like you're always like having people ask questions, you're answering a ton of them. You're really interactive. Is there like a reason why you do that?
So kind of like the start of all the questions is I think in 2012. So I had a Tumblr, and people would like send me so many questions on Tumblr, just like asking whatever. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna set one day a week aside where I just answer questions, because then it's just easier for me, because I can just like sit down and like streamline them, whatever.
Definitely.
And I started doing that, and that's kind of just like I've carried on for I guess almost 6 years now, where every Tuesday I'm answering everyone's questions. And yeah, it's just really fun for me, honestly, because I get to hear like some really interesting questions, some questions that I think, and then just like silly ones too, which are always fun to hear.
No, I think it's really cool that you do that. And I think I always say like social media is such like it's built to be like an interactive platform, regardless of like what medium you're using. And obviously Instagram makes it super easy. So I think it's really cool to be able like, I love when people reach out to me, especially now that I've been doing this and that I can interact with them and they're asking me questions, or they're saying like, hey, I was inspired by this guest or that guest, or now I'm doing this. And like, that's actually happening. And I've never been really in a position to get feedback like that. So I can definitely level with you in that sense and be like, it's really cool to be able to interact with people that you inspire. And because obviously they have questions about like your life and like how you've done things. And I think it's cool to be able to share those stories. And again, that's another reason I wanted to have you on here, because I saw you were so interactive. So I was like, she's going to be great to talk to. She's done so much, and you know, she's very inspiring. So I think it's really cool to be able to do that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been honestly like so much fun for me, and I love doing it.
Well, Sierra, I really appreciate speaking with you and the time you've taken out. Obviously, you said I know you've done tons of interviews, you have like tons of things going on, you're training all the time and doing all these things, but I definitely expect you to be coaching soon.
Yeah, that's the next thing on the to-do list.
No, I think you'll do great. When you decide to do that. But one thing, if I'll say anything, that I would say that I don't think you're ever, and I know you already know this, but you're never ready to really start something, right? So you may not think the time's right, but obviously you are more than capable, technically and knowledge-based to be able to do that. So I think that would be really cool for you to do that, and it'd be really fun. And just like you learn from like being able to have all these people ask you questions, you learn from them, they learn from you, and I think like that kind of relationship with the client coach would be very beneficial, mutually beneficial as well. So I think it would be like a cool tangent in your career to be able to pursue.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the encouragement. I'm definitely gonna start thinking more about it.
Yeah, hopefully I get like a random direct message in like whenever, like in a couple of months, and you're like, I'm coaching. Like I'll be like, awesome. So for those of you or for the listeners that don't really follow you, or they're inspired by you and they want to find you, how can they find you? What's the best way? Instagram or websites, or what's the best way?
Well, I try to make myself very available, but Instagram, my handle is Sierra Blair-Coyle, and my website, sierrabc.com. Or if you just Google Sierra Blair-Coyle, I'm not too hard to get a hold of.
Yeah, I know. It's really easy for anybody listening or watching. Like, just type in the name, and then whatever avenue you want to get in touch or follow your career and see you continue to excel, it's going to be pretty easy to follow. So, again, Sierra, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to speak with me. It was really enjoyable. I had a great time with you, and I'll be excited to continue to see your success.
Oh, definitely. Thank you for speaking with me. It was great to talk to you as well. And I'm excited to listen to this and all the other interviews.
Absolutely, yeah. Please, and this will definitely be a great one. We've added so much more good content to the podcast, so thanks so much.
Awesome, thank you.
Sierra, thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.
See you.
Let's light it up for my city. Let's light it